Welcome to the dot, the Dagesh. We have seen in each of our units that often we find a dot placed into a consonant. So we're going to spend a little bit of time exploring what this Dagesh is all about. So there are two categories of Dageshes, the weak Dagesh and the strong Dagesh. We begin with the weak Dagesh, also known as the Beged Kefets. So, the Beged Kefets are basically just a way of remembering 6 important letters. And these you can see here, the Bet, Gimel, Daled, Kaf, Fe, and Taf. So these 6 letters represent the 6 letters that can be written with or without a Dagesh, and cases in which the addition of the Dagesh impacts on the way that the letter is pronounced. So, in modern Hebrew, we have retained the pronunciation difference for 3 of the Beged Kefets. So, for example, you're all probably familiar at this point by the fact that we have the Bet and the Vet. It's the same consonant. It's pronounced in 2 slightly different ways, depending on whether there's a Dagesh or not. Similarly, Kaf and Chaf. It's the same letter, 2 different pronunciations, and then Pei and Fe. Now, if you've got some private space here, or you don't mind if family members or friends see you doing something a little bit silly with your mouth, then I recommend that you try the following. If you say bet, and you make the B sound, pay attention to the set of your jaw, pay attention to where your tongue is in your mouth, and even how your teeth are set. And you'll notice that when you say vet and when you say bet, everything in your mouth is exactly the same, except for one difference. The forms with a dot are what we call plosives. So the air explodes out of your mouth, while the forms that do not have the Dagesh have a continuous sound. So if you just think again about vet, you can continue that sound, but a B is always just going to pop out of your mouth. The same with the Kaf and the Chaf. Versus K. Everything in your mouth, the constriction in your throat, the position of everything in your mouth is identical. It's just whether you're allowing the air to flow freely or not. Fe, P, Pei. So basically, the Beged Kefets are about sounds and whether the sound is stops and is kind of plosive, explosive, or whether the sound continues. Now, in modern Hebrew, we no longer retain a difference between the Gimel with a Dagesh and without, Daled with a Dagesh and without, and the Taf. Although it's likely that at some point the Gimel with the dot is G, a hard plosive sound, and so the Gimel without the dot was probably pronounced something like R. If you can imagine just G, but allowing the air to flow through. So Daled without the Dagesh was probably something like, instead of D, the, almost like a hard TH, as in Spanish. And then finally, Taf, something like a TH sound. So again, these are no longer pronounced differently in modern Hebrew. Now, when a beged kefet is preceded by a vowel, there is no dagesh. And so if you look at the word bait, the bet at the beginning is not preceded by a vowel. So there is a dagesh, and it's a hard sound, bait. But as soon as we want to say and a house, and we add the u, then the bet is immediately preceded by a vowel, and we lose the dagesh. So it becomes u vait. Now, this weak dagesh never changes the meaning of a word. It's just all about pronunciation. That is just what happens with the mouth. So another thing that you may want to do in the privacy of your own space is, after saying the word bait, try to say u bait 10 times really, really quickly. And you'll notice that because the mouth is going from an oo sound to a b sound, that naturally over time you are really pronouncing no longer uvait, uvait, uvait. You're now into uvait. And it's just because it's easier for the mouth to go from an oo, from an extending sound to another extending sound. One more example. If you look at the bottom, kotev. So this word, meaning writing, the participle for writing, has 3 beged kefets in it. So the kaf has no vowel preceding it, so it has a dagesh, and it's the hard sound, k, ko. But the taf in the middle is preceded by a vowel, the o sound, and so that does not have a dagesh. And the bet at the end also was preceded by an a sound, so that does not have a dagesh. And that's the basic rule. Now, the strong dagesh is also a dot. The two forms look the same. They just have different purposes. And the strong dagesh does affect the meaning of words. So in older English, the way that we used to say something is not legal would be to say illegal. This in was a form that negated a word. Or someone who cannot read, earlier in English we would have said illiterate. Now the N sound is not very stable, especially when it's put right next to another consonant. So again, if you say illegal a bunch of times, you'll notice that you're eventually not pronouncing the N. And so what we do in English is we write 2 L's. And the origin of the 2 L's is that the first one comes from the N that's been assimilated. So illegal, illiterate, illegitimate, all of those words represent an N sound that has been assimilated into the word. Now in English, we write 2 different consonants, so L, L. But in Hebrew, you write the consonant just one time, and then you add a dagesh to indicate that it's actually doubled, that it's representing something that you can't see. So imagine the L with a dot in it, and that's basically the strong dagesh. Now, why do we get, what kinds of conditions would lead us to get a strong dagesh? Well, similar to the example we just looked at in English, sometimes a letter assimilates into the following letter, and the most common one is a nun. So let me show you how this plays out. We have learned from our vocabulary lists that there's a preposition min, which means from. Now, when we first learned about prepositions, we learned about the fact that b and ki and li can actually be attached to words. Well, mean can stand independently, or it can attach directly to a noun. But look what happens. If we want to add mean and attach it directly to a noun, so here I'm just using a new vocabulary word, Mitzrayim, this nun is going to assimilate into the following letter. And so min Mitzrayim becomes mi Mitzrayim. So this Dagesh in the mem is a strong Dagesh, and it's representing the nun that has assimilated from the word min. Another condition in which we'll find a strong Dagesh is that sometimes there are particular word forms that require a letter to be doubled. So we've started talking about verbs. So kadash, to be holy, is our basic kal binyan that we're focusing on in this course. Just to anticipate, if you want to change kadash, the kal, into a piel binyan, and to make this mean he sanctified, the formula, part of the formula for the piel binyan is that you have to double the middle root letter. And so here, kidesh is part of the piel formula. So if you see a dagesh in any Hebrew letter, apart from the beged kefetz, it has to be a strong dagesh. So it's only the 6 consonants of the beged kefetz in which you have to determine whether the dagesh is a weak dagesh, and it's about just pronunciation, or whether it's a strong dagesh. And remember that the beged kefetz do not have a dagesh if that consonant is immediately preceded by a vowel. So if you do see a dagesh in a beged kefetz, and you see that it's immediately preceded by a vowel, then that dagesh must be a strong one. So finally, just to recap, a weak dagesh is about pronunciation, and it impacts on 6 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And the strong dagesh is about meaning, and it can appear in any of the consonants, including the beged kefetz, and excluding what we've talked about before, the guttural letters. So I thought it might be time for some more cute dogs.